right 2 weeks before this, we got to help Tim get started again. We got to get him going. We got to get him a podcast. She's wanting to spearhead this. She sounds like somebody that's got a level head, entrepreneur-like, business mindset, and let's do this. This urgency. We don't got time. Let's get Tim out there and let's get going again. And then 2 weeks later, she's a victim.
There are a lot of people in Utah that he'll shut down. He'll threaten to lawsuit them. He'll threaten defamation and things like that. He's done the same thing to me. I'm not scared of him. But a lot of people get worried and nervous about him, and so they don't say anything. And he's done a lot of harm to people in Utah. Young girls that have been hurt by him emotionally and physically.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've gotten to know Celeste over the years just because she works closely with Tim, and she's gone on ops. I've been on operations with her or conversed with her tons of times. And even her story is to me is pretty wild that that she jumped into this as well. I wouldn't even know where to begin.
She jumped into the legislation,
into the lawsuit, and jumped in
the litigation.
Yeah, into litigation as well.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. I'm aware that she was also complaining about the other girls at one point when the other girls were first making complaints against him. I think there's emails that OUR just uncovered, right, and threw in their counter lawsuit against Celeste about how she was actually complaining against these girls. I would say right off the bat, though, I can't answer for, I guess, all 5 of them, but the ones that I do know would have went on ops and continued to go on ops. Like no one was sexually harassed where they were wanting to stay away from Tim. No one was ever trying to deny Tim to even speak with them or converse with them or be around them. On these operations, we have like 10 to 20 people sometimes. For any of these questionable activities to happen, they had so many people to go to on the side that they could have pulled aside and said, hey, something funny happened the other night. I was with Tim, yada, 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 right? They had so many opportunities to see any of that. But also beyond that, some of these women that are claiming these things supposedly still went on ops again, right? And so even though they're claiming certain things happened on an operation, they'd gone on another operation. No one was doing anything that was against what they wanted to do.
All right, we're back again for another edition. We're here with Janet again for the second time. Some of you might not know that we were coming back, but we are back. We're back, right?
We're back. It's actually the third time.
Well, yeah, the third time because we talked to a survivor. That was the first episode. Mm-hmm. And you're getting a playlist going here, Janet. And that's a good thing because I think the majority of the things later on you want to focus on are the what you and Tim from the beginning tried to bring awareness to and are still bringing awareness to it. And we want to continue to bring awareness to it right here as well.
Tim and Catherine, and Catherine, and then the whole team wanted to bring awareness to.
Absolutely. Yes. Everyone involved in those who truly, and even some of those who are now your, those who
maybe aren't speaking as favorably about Tim.
Thank you.
And OUR and others
had good intentions and still.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Right. And there are so many organizations worldwide that are fighting anti-human trafficking. So we support and honor and admire all of those organizations that are
Amen.
helping in any part of anti-human trafficking.
That is true. I want to start off by saying or asking a question, Janet, asking you and asking those who are listening or those who are watching. Did you ever notice how we humans, we love to find connections between things? That's what we do, is we have to be on one side or the other. It's just something in our brains. We're hardwired to search for patterns. We're hardwired to search for explanations in our world around us.
Yes.
But sometimes our desire to assign causation might lead us astray. Would you agree?
Sure. I do agree. Yes. The brain wants to find resolution.
Right. And that correlation does not equal causation. We've heard that a lot before in our lives. And just because two things happen together doesn't mean one caused the other. And all I want to do is ask people today, if you're listening and watching, I want you to embrace skeptical thinking. Okay? Because there is a danger in hasty causation. Right, Janet?
I like that, Troy. Yes. And some people might say embrace skepticism to mean a negative perception of something. But skepticism can be healthy, and we've heard those two words put together, healthy skepticism, where you're objective, you're open, and you're listening to both sides, and you're weighing both sides, and then you're trying to find the sources. You and I we've been talking about sources and a little bit where is information coming from. We always want to make sure that we have primary sources, or if we have a secondary source, then it's a very credible secondary source. And I'm going away from our conversation, but I'm just wanting to add that anything past that, he said, she said, a tertiary source, or carrying a piece of information as if it's fact when it's not fact, or we don't know if it's factual, and then assigning, a strong opinion to it, it's a bit of a waste of time. So always best to talk to primary sources and fact check.
Absolutely. And I want you to know, I need to tell you something, Janet. I think I'm going to ask you some hard-hitting questions, and hopefully you will be prepared for those answers. You and I didn't
Bring it on.
Well, I mean, I did get some flack, I guess you could say, for not asking enough, or maybe not asking the right questions. So I did draft a little bit of something where you are my friend, but I want answers too, and we'll see where this goes. I mean,
good.
But I am on the side of due process, and this is what this is all about, as far as I'm concerned, is not being too hasty, and that's what I defend. My whole purpose in defending Tim was stop being so hasty to jump to a conclusion. Okay, we've seen in the past how the Me Too movement has been oh so right, but also oh so wrong at times as well. And what it does is it makes true victims, it discredits true victims in the end. I'm not saying that there's not true victims here. What I'm saying is, as far as I'm concerned, things are leaning in what I see and feel in a direction that makes me question a lot of things. So anyway, without further ado, let me do your bio again real quick. Okay.
You can condense it. Just shorten
I
it.
will. I
Super
will.
short.
Janet is a native. Last time my mic was going out, but Janet is a native of Connecticut, calls both Connecticut and Utah home. She is married to Richard RUSE, who she fell in love with at BYU. They have 9 children. They adopted all of them, or many of them are adopted. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
You've attended East College in London before transferring to BYU. Soon after her baptism into the church, you went Spanish speaking mission. You taught at
Let
the
me interrupt you for a second. Sorry. So I attended college on the East Coast, then went to London, then BYU.
Okay, you told me to condense this, and that's what I'm doing.
Oh, go ahead.
You went on a Spanish speaking mission, taught in the MTC for 3 years, and then you graduated with your major in humanities, right? From BYU?
Correct. Yes.
You studied German, Spanish, Japanese, and English. You speak a Skoshi. I remember you saying that last time. A Skoshi, which means a little bit. And you speak a Skoshi of Spanish too. Oh, you speak a lot of Spanish, actually. You love languages. Learned French out of necessity, as 6 of children are from French Polynesia. You enjoy, this is the funny part.
Lots of things.
Lots of things. Lots of things that y'all enjoy. And let's reiterate this. And if you guys want the full bio, go watch the first one. All right. Executive director. You were executive director at Operation Underground Railroad for Children Need Families, and director of strategic alliances also at Operation Underground Railroad. Janet is a passionate advocate for vulnerable children. She has been involved in the adoption and foster care space for 20 years and the work of anti-human trafficking for 10 years professionally. She has served on several boards in volunteer capacities, as well as neighborhood chair, district, and state delegate. And many other activities that you enjoy, but you'd consider your greatest blessings to have this earthly opportunity to experience life's joys and challenges together with your family. And that's what we all should be striving for. Okay.
Yeah, which we don't have enough time for. We don't have enough of that.
That's right. Yeah.
So he should be on.
So who's Kahea? How do you say his last name?
Kahea Kamal.
Yeah, Kahea Kamal. He is from Hawaii, and he is going to be joining us. Maybe I should ask him. Should we start with him then?
Yeah, we can start with him. So Kahea is a businessman, entrepreneur. He's been an operator on his own dime for Operation Underground Railroad, working with Tim, in various capacities, but not paid. I don't believe Kahea has ever been paid as a contractor or, as an operator, but he has a plethora of skills and interests, and he is an excellent operator. So he can speak to operations very well. I think he's going to come on. Should I give him a call real quick?
He's right here.
Okay. Super.
There he is.
There we go.
All right.
Hey.
With some skiing in the background.
Oh yeah.
Or no, it's sledding.
Make it feel like we're in the winter, even though it's like 70 outside.
Yeah. Is it really?
I think it's like 60 something.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice. Kahea Kamal?
Yeah.
Okay, Kahea Kamal. Welcome aboard. We thought maybe you weren't going to make it, so we were going in a different direction. But since you arrived, my name's Troy, by the way. Nice to meet you. I did meet you on the phone about a week ago, briefly. So I want you, we're going to go in your direction. I want you to, Janet kind of gave a brief bio on who you are. Is there anything maybe he needs to
Super
add?
brief.
Yeah.
He does.
I don't
yeah.
have a bio on you, Kahea, so could you briefly just tell the audience who you are and maybe why you're here?
Yeah. So, Kaha Kamal, I guess to give background on why I'm here for this particular podcast. I've been doing ops and going on operations with Tim Ballard for almost 7 years now. I have been in several rescues. I know Tim extremely close, and then on top of that, I know some of the girls that are also involved in the lawsuits that are pressing charges against him as well. And so I have a kind of a deep knowledge on things that go on in the operations. I also have knowledge of some of the girls there. And then aside from all that, I'm not actually a paid operator. I came in on more of a donor side, but I have a lot of skills in weapons, martial arts, and so forth. And so originally I was introduced to Tim Ballard through Sean Reyes, the Attorney General in Utah. And from there, we just, I got extremely involved actually. And when they knew I had skill sets like that, they started bringing me on operations as well.
A valuable commodity, and many different, a plethora of different things that you do. I get it. So what possessed you, or what drove you to talk to Janet about this and to say that you would come on? What is your axe you have to grind in a good way? I mean that in a good way, as in, are you here to bring transparency to some things?
Oh, definitely. I think the problem is there's been a lot coming from a one-sided point of view, or one-sided, or basically just the other parties. But there really hasn't been much as far as Tim's side and those kind of things. It's not that even that I'm wanting to pick sides. It's really just about, like you said, transparency on really what was going on back then. And the way that the stories are being portrayed right now, and whether or not, in the news, and I guess it's mainly just Utah. Here in California, we don't really hear much about any of this, but
that's right. You're in California with me.
Yeah, I'm in California.
Yeah.
And so it's more of, it has nothing to do with sides or anything like that. It just has to do with, here's the truth. Here's what's really had been going on for the last few years. And here's what I'm aware of. Here's what I saw. Here's what I know. And I believe a lot of the story that's out there isn't being portrayed correctly.
Yeah. So you wanted to come on and talk a little bit about Celeste?
Yeah. So I can talk about Celeste. And so,
who is Celeste?
Celeste is Tim's assistant, executive assistant.
Okay.
ZA, right? And she'd been his executive assistant for a long time.
She's the one that was in the video that we showed a brief clip of her on a podcast. I think it was that September, Janet?
It was.
Barely in September.
Yeah, it was September. Yep, because we were traveling. I was there when Celeste went on the podcast. I mean, I was not in the room, but we had all traveled to the podcasting studio, and Celeste went in and did the podcast and then came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's
September.
Just to let everyone know, the last video we did with Janet where she's talking about the case, it's the video that we showed. The girl's eyes are Celeste, the woman's eyes are blurred out, and she's being very supportive of the ops, of the RUSE, and speaking about going to even Korea. And was it Korea?
Girls from North Korea were being trafficked, and Tim and Celeste and others discovered those girls.
So that is Celeste. Anyway,
in the U.S.
Right. Go ahead, Kahea.
Yeah. So I've gotten to know Celeste over the years just because she works closely with Tim, and she's gone on ops. I've been on operations with her, or conversed with her tons of times. And even her story is to me is pretty wild that that she jumped into this as well. I wouldn't even know where
You
to
mean she jumped
begin
into the
into the
legislation
lawsuit and
or the
and yeah, jumped
not
in
legislation, the litigation?
yeah, into litigation as well.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. I'm aware that she was also complaining about the other girls at one point when the other girls were first making complaints against him. I think there's emails that OUR just uncovered, right? And threw in their counter lawsuit against Celeste about how she was actually complaining against these girls. I would say right off the bat, though, I can't answer for, I guess, all 5 of them, but the ones that I do know would have went on ops and continue to go on ops. Like no one was sexually harassed where they were wanting to stay away from Tim. No one was ever trying to deny Tim to even speak with them or converse with them or be around them. On these operations, we have like 10 to 20 people sometimes. For any of these questionable activities to happen, they had so many people to go to on the side that they could have pulled aside and said, hey, something funny happened the other night. I was with Tim, yada, 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 right? They had so many opportunities to see any of that. But also beyond that, some of these women that are claiming these things supposedly still went on ops again, right? And so even though they're claiming certain things happened on an operation, they'd gone on another operation. No one was doing anything that was against what they wanted to do.
So what you're saying is you would have, you feel like you're a pretty clear-headed guy that could recognize if somebody's in duress. I mean, you guys are actually rescuing people that are in situations like that.
Yes.
That's the irony is you see people. I've heard the term, what do they call them? Panda kids. What do they say? You know what you know what I'm talking about? Where there's signs in someone that's being trafficked or Stockholm syndrome. People are mentioning that about the women too, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, like and there's an underlying nervousness about them. Or,
they've got dark circles under their eyes.
Correct. No.
And you guys have paid attention to all these signs of people that are in situations like that, right?
Yeah, easily recognizable, but also beyond that, no one was ever forced to go on any of these ops. Like they had to drive themselves to the airport. They had to make sure they made it there on time, which for me is very hard sometimes. I miss a lot of my flights because I have so much going on. So I intentionally have to fly. Everybody intentionally has to fly. You know, you can't just leave the country unwillingly and kicking your feet, and somehow customs is not going to see that, immigration is not going to see that.
Right.
No, they were excited to be there. They're excited to be a part of the operation. They're excited to be a part of the rescues or potential rescues. They're excited over and over. You would hear, and not just them, almost everybody that's gone on up. So grateful to be a part of the experience and be there to help those that need to be rescued and so forth. This isn't Stockholm syndrome where somebody's literally locked, which I've seen, I've witnessed, and we've rescued girls out of, where they're literally locked in basically cells with their trafficker, and they're not allowed to go certain places. They're not allowed to go out at certain times. They have to eat at certain times, right? Like that's an actual kidnapping, or that's what then creates the whole Stockholm syndrome, because they're basically captive and have to do what they're told to do. And it's on the schedule.
They don't have their passports.
They don't have their passports, and they're on their captor's schedule, right? Any one of these at any given time, especially because these operations are out of country, it's so easy to say, hey, and there's been times I couldn't make it. Janet knows that. There are times where OUR really needed me on an operation because I knew I was already there on the pre-operation. And so I had already met some of the traffickers and had already gotten myself into this mission, but I just couldn't make it because of family reasons. No big deal. Hey, can't make it. Simple text message. Not even a phone call to me asking, oh, why, or this or that, or how
Mhm.
come. There's never pressure to go to an operation. It's literally people wanting to go.
Yeah.
And every time we go and visit a place and Tim is speaking, or even now, people have seen the movie, but even before people saw the movie, when we showed the premiere, you're always getting a line of people asking if by chance they can somehow go on a mission and they want to be a part of the operation. It's like, I'm not saying that it was like reward to the girls to allow them to go, but it is, from a lot of people's perspective, they wish they could go and have the opportunity to go.
I wanted to, it's interesting you said that, because one of the things I want to ask you is, Tim's not the only guy that did the couples ruse, right?
Yeah, I think there's a few operators, and then we'd have like different setups, I guess, of
Right.
couples or
When
whatever.
you see them in character, or when you see them, I always think of method acting. Do you know what method acting is? Like
Uh,
Johnny Depp does it with the Pirates in the Caribbean, where they will stay in character even offset, and they will at
oh
home,
yeah,
and they'll
oh yeah, yeah. No, we're told to. I mean, the moment you get on the plane, if we're headed to another country and we're gonna land there, we have no idea who else is on the plane. So you're supposed to sit together, right? We're in role the moment we get to the airport is pretty much what it is, and that's the departing airport, because we have no idea who's traveling on that same plane with us.
So are the people that are passing judgment, I guess, I'm not trying to put words in people's mouths in this interview, but would you say that those out here in the world, or those who are leaving comments on the podcast, or watching the news, the media, do you feel that maybe they're not considering that dark side of things, where you're being watched constantly? You're not acting for, I keep saying, acting for an Emmy or an Oscar. You have to put on a good act, or you're going to die, or you're not going to be able to rescue children, or you could put your partner's life in danger if you don't do things right.
100%. Someone's put in danger if you're not playing the roles the right way, and everything is set up strategically. Like OER, Tim, and us, we've done this for years, and not that everything is always perfect, because you're always so many variables, but there are certain things that we try to set up on purpose. So that we don't end up alone with the traffickers, that we always have reasons to excuse ourselves out. That's why the couples ruse. It's so easy to blame something on your girlfriend or wife. Oh man, she's acting up today. Sorry, man, dude, I'll call you tomorrow. Sorry. Right. Like, it's so easy to do that. If I go in with another guy, what's my excuse? Oh, my buddy's not feeling well right now. Like, it just looks weird. First of all,
Right.
that having a woman actually coming along with us it makes it a lot easier for us to come up with excuses to excuse ourselves out of a situation that could turn to be dangerous. Now, as far as playing the role, like you said, we have no idea who's going to be on that plane. No one does. How are we to know that someone's cousin of the trafficker just happened to be on the plane? And then all of a sudden, now we're at dinner. It's not really dinner. We'll meet them at bars or wherever we do these meetups with the traffickers. And all of a sudden, the cousin's there. Hey, I saw you. Hey, wait a minute. Where's the other two guys that you're sitting with? And we're trying to play like I'm on vacation with my wife or whatever it is. For those that were in the couples ruse, like, we have no idea. And so as soon as we're outside of our controlled environment, which is basically home, as soon as we leave home, we have to be in role. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and it is dangerous. It's not that I've been on ops where our phones are taken right in the middle of the conversation. The security guy for the trafficker grabs my phone. Hey, let me look it up. Are you effing cop? Look it up. And
What's going through your mind at that time? Just your heart's beating fast, your adrenaline's going. What's going to happen next? Am I going to be dead in the next 5 minutes?
Well, and that's where it's. I think the amount of training we've done puts us in a place to understand that if this is your role, right? If you're the American partier, right? If that's the role, you're American partier down with your significant other, or if it's just you're down with your buddies to party and you're looking for some girls, right? If you put yourself in that role and the trafficker security guy grabs your phone, like, hey man, are you effing cop, blah, 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 and trying to look at your phone, what would a partier dude from America do? He's not going to get aggressive and yell back at the guy. He's going to be like, whoa, man, dude, I'm not a cop. What the heck is going on? Hey, man, I'm
Right.
just here to party. You guys want to party? let me go off, right? Like, and so you have to constantly be in that role. It's not just that, oh, we're going to act like we're in that role as soon as you get to the meeting. You have to mentally be in that role so that your reactions are exactly what that role would react to for that situation, not the reaction of Tim Ballard, former CIA. It's a reaction of whatever Tim's name is that he's going to go for on the, go by on the operation. It's the reaction of that guy, or for myself, it's the reaction of me as the partier guy from America that's just looking to have fun.
So it sounds, this keeps going through my head. There are so many variables and so many nuances and so many dynamics to this situation that if no one could completely comprehend this unless they're in the situation, unless you've been on a trip with you guys.
Yep. And beyond that, no one can comprehend it unless you're actually in the middle of that particular situation. Every situation is different. We have the Sage's Prayer documentary that came out. Some people have seen it, some people haven't. I'm one of the two not traffickers. I'm one of the two operators that have to go into this. We call it the mansion that's in Haiti, unarmed, and we have to go through 3 different guards that check us for arms. We're unarmed. We go inside, and our job is really to help secure the girls while the federal police storm the gates.
Oh my
which
goodness.
could take like 20 minutes for them to get in, right? Now we're inside. We have no idea how many armed people are inside the house. And when things go down, and it's all going to go down in, literally minutes, you have to make a lot of quick decisions and still maintain roll, because as soon as you break roll, now you're completely in a dangerous situation. So if you're going to break roll, then you truly have to have complete control over the environment inside, right? Or the situation inside. You've got to have everybody basically in handcuffs or down for the trafficker side or that kind of thing, right? Or you're going to continue playing role, right? And so as things are going on and say weapons are being drawn or whatever's going on the outside, you can't flip-flop back and forth between roles. You should have already been in your role earlier in the morning in that day when you first left the hotel or whatever, right? I mean, even at the hotels that we stay in, we're still in role. Hey, we got to go grab breakfast, right? You go grab breakfast at the hotel that you're at, or you're going to go down the street, grab breakfast. Places like Haiti, there's not like, there's a lot of restaurants to go to. And so you end up in local places anyway. So you're basically on roll from the time you get to the departing airport all the way through the operation and get back to home base airport.
Oh, yeah. You're experiencing almost this. How would you say this? This split. What you got 2 personalities. You become this bad guy, and the only thing that keeps you from becoming the bad guy is actually committing the acts that the bad guys are committing. But you are this. Did we talk about Celeste yet? As much as we were going to with you, or
just a teeny bit in the.
Did you want to talk more about Celeste, Kahea?
The things I know about Celeste, and I'll bring this up, are according to her, according to what she told me when she unraveled a bunch of stuff that was going on in her personal life, it was that her husband or former husband or whatever it was, they were like in the middle of divorce or split up or whatever. They weren't living together. I knew that. Was abusive, and the relationship was she was very unhappy in the relationship and happy to get away from him, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there was never a time that ever understood that she was ever in a happy relationship with her husband. I was actually surprised, and when this thing came out, and I guess they're back together. Maybe I have no idea, but I guess the claim is that somehow her relationship was ruined because of the operations with Tim and OUR or so forth. That's surprising.
Or maybe the money they know they're going to get.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's that's surprising to me because the entire time I've known her, she didn't have a relationship with someone else. It was abusive. She got away and was happy to be away.
And she talked about it often. So
she talked about it with me.
So she was a loose cannon when it came to talking about her personal life.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So she would have been a loose cannon when it came to Tim.
Oh,
if
easy.
Tim was doing those things, she wouldn't have had a problem telling you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. That's the reason why I wanted to bring that up. Did you want to stay? And we were going to talk about some things that maybe, do you want to stick around? Do you have to go or
up to you guys?
No, that's up to you. I'd love to have you here.
Okay. Yeah, I can keep talking. Yeah.
Okay. Janet.
I can contribute.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So consistent with what Kahea is saying, I want to talk about, I want to address what Kahea is saying. I have the same, I have a consistent response with what he's saying, as well as the loose cannon about Tim. So like what Kahea is saying, sorry, I keep repeating myself. Celeste talked with me about her relationship with her husband or ex-husband. I'm not sure where that stands right now. And I wouldn't normally talk about this because this is someone's private life. It's their personal relationship, but it is being portrayed in a skewed way in the documents, as well as the narrative that's being carried by other media outlets and podcasters.
Well, and you notice right off the bat, myself and Janet, who have known Celeste for years, have no idea what her relationship is with this guy.
You're talking about her husband?
Right off the bat, yeah, her husband.
Right.
Former husband. We have no idea because it was always estranged. Anyways.
Oh.
No, that's
gotcha.
That's fine.
It's mean that we're both confused about her relationship. It's not like she was in some happy husband relationship and we're like, oh yeah, they were together for
right. So now it's being portrayed like Tim ruined their perfect marriage, and because she got Stockholm syndrome and was manipulated by him sexually. Yeah.
Groomed,
manipulated, whatever.
Yeah. That wasn't the case. I mean, Celeste is an independent woman. She's a strong woman. And I want to say that about the others. There are two others that are unidentified. One is in the lawsuits and one is another that Troy, you and I are going to talk about. And Kahea can also address that individual who is really the genesis for this entire fiasco.
I have go ahead. No, I just got something awesome I want to ask him. Can I?
Go ahead.
Or did I interrupt you?
Go ahead. Oh, that's okay. I will make a note.
Was it normal to see him or others that are in a couples ruse with these women around you and around Janet? Or I don't know, Janet, you didn't go on the ops, right? Or you did?
I went on ops, but I didn't go on couples ruse.
Okay, but Kahea did.
I was involved on the ground. So I know of all of the women. I know their names. I know who they are. I know which operations they went on contemporaneous to them going. But I've only spoken with 3 of them. Okay, gotcha. Now, Kahea, was it normal for you to be right there with them? I don't know if you guys I don't know what it's like in these third world countries. So you're at a bar, is that what you call it? Or
it'd be at a bar, whatever the meetup is.
Right.
It varied. So let's say that, and plus we're all split up. Right. So it's not like I'm tagging, like if there's a couple, the couples are on their own.
Gotcha. Right? But it wouldn't be
look like they're on their own, but we're we're in different places monitoring.
But as they're in role and you, let's say you come in passing or you're meeting up somewhere or whatever, was it, or you're in public with them maybe for a brief second, okay? Was it uncommon for you to see them acting like a couple right in front of you?
No, not at all.
I'm talking about, this is my old lady.
Holding hands.
This is my old lady, right?
Yeah, you're holding hands, you're walking around the street, you're shopping. And here's the thing too is
and even hugging, being a little intimate, just playing the part.
You gotta giggle, you gotta kind of flirt. The role is you've got whether it's husband, wife, or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, they're in another country, they're on vacation, right? They didn't fly down just to have a meeting. They're on vacation, they're having fun. We're in a tourist area and they're walking around the little town, right? And we're monitoring the whole time, by the way. We have our software that we use that it's installed on all of our phones that we can track each other's GPS. We are covering different places so that everybody's monitored the whole time. And I'll position myself so I can see where the couples are walking, let's say down the street to another place. And I'll position myself ahead of them and be sitting at, let's say, a cafe drinking coffee, and they'll walk by, right? And so that we're always, and we have a bunch of us, which is why there's like 10 to 15 of us on some of these big routes. Sometimes there's even 20, because you've got the couples doing their thing. And then you've got a bunch of us operators all playing our role as just random people, being able to cover and look out for them.
So was it, so about dirtying up the phones? You know what that means.
You've got to be, my phone's been taken before. My burner phone's been taken before. Like I was saying earlier, the guy grabs the phone, he's like, you better not be an effing cop, right?
Okay.
Now, if I had my normal phone on me and you got Tim Ballard's texting me and you got...
you got your wife in Utah, your Mormon wife in Utah, or your...
Well, I'm not married, but...
no, I'm talking about Tim and
you've got your
Celeste
family,
or whatever.
Kids, right? And it'd be a horrible situation, and I probably would be shot.
Right.
And the people that we're dealing with, what people don't understand, these are guys that are willing to demoralize and destroy little girls. What do you think they're going to do to me?
Right. Especially if they know they're going to go to prison for life.
Gone. Let me just shoot them. Gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we were dealing with traffickers one time where two traffickers got in a fight right before we were supposed to meet with them. They get into whatever disagreement. I don't know what it was for, right? But all we know is that the one guy walked up to the other guy point blank at a Starbucks and offed him right in the head. Now we're supposed to go and meet with this guy like the next day. Like these guys, like they care a little bit about life if they're willing to destroy and harm little girls. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to care what they do with me.
Right. Mm-hmm. So my point being, also that's I love this. Valuable, very valuable. What you just said. The thing is the reason I brought up the phones is because you see these women talking about these texts as though they were isolated texts from the role they were playing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that when you hear them say that?
If they were correct, then what they're basically what they're insinuating is that Tim wanted to eventually have sex with them, right? Let's just put it out there. What they're trying to insinuate is that Tim's intention was of sexual, basically sex, right? Because that's men either have the intention to have sex with women or not. Now, here's the thing: if that was the intention, then they would have ended up having sex. None of them are claiming that they've ever had sex.
Right.
Men don't have this like gray area. Like they're like a woman opens a door and a guy
I'm going to try this again.
He's going to take it.
Right.
Like it just is.
Right.
And that's just how men are, right? We think with our waist. And so the moment, if there is a little intention of that, right? Like, oh, I'm going to sex text this girl, blah, blah, blah. And then she gives the opportunity and she's naked, supposedly in the shower, or whatever it was that they were claiming. The guy would be a guy and do exactly what his intention was. That's the difference, right? Versus the woman will react with the emotions of it. And so, that never happened, which then proves intention was never to have sex with them. especially because they've named all these opportunities.
But it was normal for you to see texts like that.
Yeah.
Pretending that, hey, I'll meet you at the hotel tonight.
You have to have texts like that.
Okay.
If you don't
That's
have
dirtying up
like
the phone. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
If you don't have texts like that and you're walking in and they take our phones a lot. Like they're trying to cover themselves, and we're glad to do it, which is why we have these burner phones, knowing that they are going to take our phone to try to test us, and we have to look like dirty people.
So when you hear grooming, sexual manipulation, all of this stuff, you're going, of course it looks like that, because that's what we were pretending to be.
The traffickers need to see.
Right. It's laughable.
Like who walks into, oh yeah, let me go have sex with an 8-year-old, and then but is like so clean cut, and look at his phone, and he's never even, he doesn't even have porn in the browser.
No.
Right. Like
he's day trading.
Right. He's day trading. He's got like nothing in there. He doesn't even talk sexy to a random girl in his text messages. Like, come on. Like, that is so obvious.
Yeah.
It'd be so obvious that the person is either A, undercover, or B, fishing for something.
And you make a good point. If Tim is going if a guy's going all the way to completely proposition a woman like that, that means there's been a buildup to that. There's been a huge buildup, right, to that.
Yep.
And it would have happened. It would have happened if he's gotten to
know how to stop that. Like they're
dialogue.
They're in the mind frame of like, hey, I want this girl, and I'm gonna text her. I'm gonna send her all these different types of messages.
Which means he's that close already.
Well, and then they name all these situations where they're supposedly naked with him. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. but no
intercourse, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And I want to add too that some of the women.
That's what I was just going to ask you, Janet. Go ahead.
Good. Some of the women propositioned Tim. So I'm on the ground or, back home and on the phone with Tim, and sometimes the operators, and with Celeste quite a lot. If I wasn't with her in person, we were on the phone. She was Tim's EA. She was also doing the couples RUSE, etc. Another operator that I said, who's been on quite a few ops in the litigation, who has not identified herself, so we're not identifying her. Those two in particular, I spoke to quite a lot. Like Kahea is saying, there are so many opportunities to have already had sex, and that didn't happen.
Well, you said Tim came to you, right?
Question?
Tim came to you one time.
Yes.
And what was that about?
So several times he called during the operation and said, in one situation, he said, we're burning the op, which did happen. And that female is not in the litigation. But like I said, we'll reference her later. She is the genesis for this whole, what I referenced before, said before, was a fiasco. The litigation, the lawsuits, and other females, he said, during the op, were propositioning him, or I'm sorry, during a training. So one during a training, so she didn't make the training, and another on an operation. So I said to Tim, both times, not that he needed to hear this from me, he already knew. He was sharing with me what happened and discussing next steps. But I said to him, run, Joseph, run, referring to Joseph in Egypt, who
Potiphar's wife
was accused of initiating advances with Potiphar's wife. And it was actually the opposite. So Potiphar's wife is referred to in religious circles and non-religious circles as an incident or situation where a woman propositions a man and the man is blamed for it. So there's a victim here. I'm not saying these women didn't experience some things that maybe they didn't feel later were according to their morals. Like I said before in the other podcast, the previous podcast, maybe they felt bad about it. Maybe they felt uncomfortable sorry, uncomfortable about it after the fact, way after the fact, because they went to a training, then they went on an operation, and then someone on multiple operations. And like Kahea is saying, they have many opportunities to tap out. Easy to tap out. But they continued, and there are reasons why they continued.
But that's
They continued
Stockholm
because they enjoyed
syndrome.
being there.
Go
They
ahead.
wanted to be there.
Yeah. And the Potiphar's wife situation is true in Tim's case. Advances were made on him. I don't know if he had ever shared that with you, Kahea.
I'm well aware. I'm aware
Yeah.
of a few situations that are. I don't know if I'm allowed to disclose here, so I won't.
Go for it. I'm going to edit this, so don't worry. Go ahead. Just do it.
I'm aware of an Airbnb that a woman rented and was hopeful that he would show up there to meet her on the weekend. You know, because here's the thing too. Again, you go back to intention. Again, if there was an intention for him to ever sexually be with these women, the worst place to be is on operation. There's 20 of us, 15 of us.
Yes.
We're constantly watching everybody. We don't just let a random operator walk off unsafe. Everybody's watched. They're on GPS. You can't just quietly, discreetly sneak away. Also, we're in Airbnbs. We literally rent an entire house. We're all there together.
You're a family. You're a big family.
Yeah.
You're a big team.
Exactly. And we do that, because we don't want to be at a hotel unless we're just forced to be at a hotel, but we don't want to be at one because we can't control what goes down in the foyer and everything. We can't control if someone's follows us back there, right? But at a house, it's safe, it's secure. We can close the gate. We know no one's outside. We can watch, and we can keep everybody inside safe inside the house over the night, right? So again, you go back to intention, but beyond that, like what Janet's saying, the reality is you've got women in some of these in unhappy marriages or relationships. You have a star like Tim, who, especially in Utah at the time, was well known for years to be the hero, right? And this man, and a lot of women will fall for a hero, and then they're around him, and they start to develop feelings. And I'm a single guy. I'm 40s and single. I've dated a lot, and I'll tell you flat out that for whatever reason, society thinks that men have always been the aggressors, and I can tell you flat out that is not the case. Women will go for what they want, and if they don't get it, then now you're the most horrible person on the planet.
I was married once. I mean, I'm sorry. This is my second marriage. I was married once before, and I was single for 5 years. I should probably say this because I can relate to that. Have you ever heard of POF? Plenty of Fish?
Yeah.
So I was on that website, but I wasn't trying. I didn't date a lot before my marriage. So after the divorce, I didn't know anything about other women. I didn't know there were so many women that pretended to be prudes that were not. And you would find out that they were just as promiscuous as the men on the website. So all I'm saying is not to dog women. We're not here to dog women, but we're here to say
they're just as
they're human beings. Yeah.
It's not that men are more sexually active than women. No, actually, I think statistically right now, women are more. And so you see that a lot, actually. And it didn't surprise me that some of these girls fell for Tim. I'm aware of the op where he had to call it off in the middle of the op because a certain operator that was with him started suggesting things that she wasn't supposed to, and alluding to trying to develop a relationship with him in the middle of character. Right. And he literally called the op off.
Right.
Well, Janet, you even said not in specific words, but it was told to you by Tim that there were references made to, or giving him permission if he wanted to go all the way. If you need to, go ahead and do this. And
correct.
He was like, ain't happening. That's not why I'm out here. That's not what we're doing.
Yep. And I had spoken to that operator on the phone during the operation several times. And of course, speaking to Tim during the operation. And that's an op that he burned or abandoned because of that behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Paul. Who is Paul? Paul, what's his last name again?
No one knows the last name. Who cares about
Wow,
it?
that's interesting. I'm curious to know why we feel that way. Paul, what's Paul's last name again, though?
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson. Paul Hutchinson. I've seen Paul. I saw him during when the movie Sound of Freedom was out, because there was a lot of clips. You would watch. I keep wanting to call him Dracula, but it's not Batman. But they Dracula. Vampiro. Yeah. He was on, you'd go through and all these clips. The movie was out. I went and saw it. It was amazing. Oh my goodness, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was a combination of different things that happened into one movie, which they do with Hollywood, does it with war heroes and all kinds of stuff. We put stuff together to kind of,
theatrics and
and compact it into 2 hours, right, so that the audience can, grasp the whole idea. So I see Paul Hutchinson, right? On some where he's being interviewed and he's saying great things. He sounds very freaking charismatic. He's just this amazing rock solid kind of guy, and was all with it and was down with it. And then I'm starting to see something different. Who is Paul and why is it important to talk about him?
Well, I believe for one, he's out there right now, spreading rumors. He's behind a lot of attacks that originally happened against Tim a while back. And I say these things because I know it. I was also, he's part of a fraudulent nonprofit. And I know that for a fact because I was the board of director of that nonprofit at one time, thinking that he was trying to raise money legitimately. I left that nonprofit. The president of the nonprofit at the time also left and actually joined OER. And I'd spent quite a bit of time with Paul. Back in 2019, we had traveled all over Europe, and he was trying to raise money for this nonprofit, which is called Child Liberation Foundation. I even donated to that Child Liberation Foundation. And he's been doing galas and raising money and talking about this Child Liberation Foundation for years now, right? We're now 2023 going into 2024. Funny enough, oddly enough, back then, as a board of director, I request to see the financials of our nonprofit. I want to know how much money was raised through our efforts. I was traveling all over on my own dime to promote this foundation. And so did the president. Neither of us were privy to the bank statements or the incoming monies that were donated and where they were going. After several months of being denied access to the financials, of course, that would create a concern. So I decided to leave the foundation. Aside from that, there's other things that are going on with Paul and what he was doing that was also wrong. I caught him in a loan where he was playing basically kind of like a Ponzi scheme where he was taking money from one entity and borrowed debt against one entity, but was paying off another person as well because he was out of money. When we were in Europe, he was completely out of money. He came to me and was and asked me to borrow money so that he could fly home to Utah. And so he's made this ruse or guise of telling people that he's got all this money and he doesn't. He talks about how he went to Bridge and built this $1 billion company, Bridge, only to find out he was fired from Bridge.
Wow.
There's a rabbit hole with Paul. Paul used to invite 20-year-olds over to his house, get them drunk and drugged up, and then offer him money for sex. Why do I know that? Because I know a couple of the girls that have come to me and told me specifically exactly what was going on with him. And these are girls that actually that shared pictures with me at his house to prove it, that were on his bed. There were like 20 girls in bikinis. So you got this guy, Paul, who supposedly is out trying to supposedly walk around wanting to rescue girls and sex trafficking, all that kind of stuff, raising money for a foundation, but no one knows anything about the financials. And it's so easy to look up IRS, look up the 990s, Child Liberation Foundation. Whoever's watching that, look it up. Like, don't take any of my words for fact. Look it up. You'll be very surprised to know there is not a single 990 filed on this Child Liberation Foundation since it started back in 2019. If that's not a big enough red flag, I don't know what is. Aside from that, what else was I going to say with him? He had talked about some whiteboard meeting, and he's made like some big deal about it. And it's so funny because I guess you could do that with any meeting, right? You could take pictures of a meeting and act like we were having some secret meeting. I was there at that meeting, the whiteboard meeting.
I was also there at the meeting.
Was that the alleged meeting about how Tim was going to convert people, or is that something else?
Yes, that's the meeting that's been referenced over and over again in the media, and Troy Rawlings referenced that meeting in the litigation when he had started an investigation into OUR.
He alleged this meeting, and he calls it the whiteboard meeting, and he's gone out recently, I guess, and made even a video about it or whatever. And it's hilarious. First of all, it's what started the investigation against OUR that ended up being dismissed,
right?
Flat out dismissed. So 2 years of investigation, they couldn't find anything. They actually found the opposite. The claim was that they weren't rescuing the amount of children that OUR had claimed, and they ended up finding out that technically that was correct because OUR had rescued more children than what was claimed.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the whole whiteboard meeting was hilarious. I was there. I actually was the one that paid for lunch because Paul couldn't afford lunch, and it was at his house.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because he was just recently. Are you familiar with? Are you a member of the church?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're not active. You don't go right. Gotcha. That's fine. The reason I'm asking that is, you're familiar with Radio Free Mormon, some of the anti-Mormon podcasters like John DeLynn and others. No. Okay. Well, Paul was on one a few nights ago where he's just saying everything that you're talking about. I'm glad that you're bringing this up because this is definitely going to be a couple shorts I'm going to put out with what you're saying right here. Because people need to be aware at the beginning of this meeting, the beginning of this meeting that we're having right here, I talk about jumping to conclusions about causation, correlation. This was definitely one of those cases where we did have a meeting, but it wasn't there was no conspiracy behind it.
Yeah,
correct.
It was just a normal meeting.
It was a brainstorming meeting.
Yeah, it was just, you go on the whiteboard. I whiteboard all the time. I have my whiteboard right behind me. Is just up all over the place.
Brainstorming. Yeah.
And even Paul's name is on that whiteboard because we had Child Liberation Foundation, which was part of it. So it's just a normal meeting. Like, I was just surprised that was even called anything, but I figured out why, and it was mainly because it was one of the last meetings Paul was invited to. It was after that the relationships all kind of fell apart, that people started distancing themselves from Paul and so forth, and things started coming to fruition. I mean, one of the things that Paul would do, and I don't know if he does it now, but he had hired a graphic designer promoter to create a fake magazine article that even had a magazine cover. And hey, on page 20, we talk about the billionaire Paul, right? And it was a fake magazine. And so then he would have all the pictures of this magazine in his phone. Then he would swipe, through his phone to show people, how supposedly important he is.
I thought he was a billionaire.
Yeah, but I guess he had to borrow $5,000 from me to fly home from Europe because he couldn't afford tickets.
Oh man, there goes my hero, Paul.
On his his video and on his bio, Paul says that he's been on 70 international operations and has rescued 5,000 children. Now, to me, if somebody wants to say something about themselves and it's not true, okay, you say what you're going to say, I guess, and you can live with that. But what's disturbing about these numbers is that where are the 5,000 children?
Yeah.
Are they in aftercare? Have they been accounted for? Where were the operations done and who with? Because one single individual cannot rescue that many
Yeah,
children.
at one point, he was claiming he had rescued just as much as OUR had rescued.
Yeah. And
Well,
it's just can't be the case. I mean, OUR has regional directors all over the world, and in 10 years has rescued close to 7,000 children. I spoke to a good friend of mine who's the CEO of OUR, the COO, I'm sorry, of OUR, Matt Osborne, to get the exact numbers, and it's in the high 5,000s. But again, that's because OUR underreports a bit. I was going to say a bit underreports, but does underreport. There's always top cover when OUR goes on a mission, meaning in-country law enforcement, in-country special operatives. The government knows that OUR is in country and they work together. I can't fathom how 5,000 children were rescued by the Child Liberation. I think it's fund. Is it Child Liberation Fund or Child Liberation Foundation?
Child Liberation Foundation.
Okay. So I can't imagine that there were 5,000 children rescued and there's no accounting. Where are the stories?
Oh,
Where
they're
are
all
the
in his
names?
head. He had a dream and rescued 200 more, and then another dream, and it's probably all the ayahuasca he's taken.
No.
He does these drug parties at his house. Ayahuasca is like, this guy is a friggin' nutcase.
He was bringing tears to my eyes when I was watching him. Man, I'm like, this guy's like Superman.
He's
This
a great
guy
storyteller.
is Superman.
Definitely a great storyteller. I was with him in Israel at a family office meeting. And he gets on stage and starts, going off on this spiel of some story that was completely false. And it was the last time I ever went with him anywhere, because after that meeting, and I'd gone with him because we're raising money or from what I understood, we were raising money for Child Liberation Foundation. He gets on stage though, and he keeps going so deep into the story, and this happened and that happened. And then he points at me and goes, "And this is my personal bodyguard right there," and pointing at me. And I was sitting there looking at him. And I was like, "Really? I'm a personal bodyguard. I freaking fund most of this. I paid for your flights to come back, so I'm pretty amazing bodyguard if I'm on paying for a lot of stuff."
Right. It
Every
reminds
single dinner that we go out to, I'm paying for that too.
So you're the one funding all this while he's saying he's this multimillionaire, or did he say billionaire, or did he say he was a multimillionaire?
The way he makes it seem is because he talks about how he built this multi-billion dollar fund, bridge investments or whatever. And so he always talks about the fund that he built, and they're 14 billion and blah, blah, blah. And, he's a little bit smart because he mixed a little truth with a bunch of lies. And so then if someone looks up bridge, they go, "Oh, wow, it is like 14 billion. What he doesn't say is that he was fired from them, and that he was kicked out, and maybe he was part of the beginnings of it. Who really knows the real story to that anyways? But the fact is he was fired from Bridge. And then he goes out and he acts like he's a millionaire and this kind of thing. But the funny story that he would always use to, and you probably heard this story because he uses it a lot, and it's the most hilarious story to show that he's poor, is, "Oh, well, I would have a supercar." This is what he says. "I would have a
Lamborghini."
It's really funny. "I would have a supercar, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I wish I would have one, but I'm using all my money to rescue kids." And I'm like, "Huh? I've got a Bentley, I've got a Ferrari, I got a Range. I got over $500,000 in cars in my driveway. And I don't claim to be some big time multi-millionaire. I've done decent. but like he runs around. I mean, $100-something thousand on a car when you're a multimillionaire is like nothing. Is nothing. But then that just proves that he does. I guess he only has a couple $100,000, and he's got to either use that for a car or use it for saving girls, right? And so all this stuff is like I won't say all this stuff is lies. But a lot of mistruths. And
Well,
if it really boils down to anything, OER has had to raise millions and millions of dollars to be able to save and rescue girls all around the world, with regional directors and hundreds of people involved and 1,000 people involved. And then you got this guy, Paul, who's doesn't really have any pictures of him on his own or through his organization, because he uses the footages from OUR. So he doesn't have anything on his own to corroborate his story. He hasn't filed any 990s. He had major tax liens back in 2019. I don't know if he's resolved them now or not, but he had major tax liens, IRS and also with the state. And that you can just look up in the court records. It's like, is right there, black and white, where he couldn't even pay $70,000 for his taxes in 2019 for Utah. Right. So like you look at all these different things, and then you have him over here on this pedestal trying to act like he's way up here. But then the facts are the facts. Like,
well, and that's the reason why we're bringing this up, folks, is not to bash on a guy named Paul Hutchinson, but in a sense, we're trying to reveal, but we're showing that this guy that is talking trash about Tim, acting like the falling out that he had with him, it's just the perfect timing, right? Where all these things are happening to Tim, and then he's coming out with these interviews about his falling out, or why he and Tim are no longer together. So people need to understand that there are a lot of people that are claiming that they were the backbone of the operation, right? That were not. Mm-hmm. That were clearly not. That were the actual. It reminds me of people that we know that they're talented, they're gifted, but then they kind of screw up because they don't discipline themselves. It seems like a very undisciplined, talented guy.
Well, it gets a little worse.
A very undisciplined, talented guy.
It gets a little worse than that, though, because he was also caught touching a young girl on an op.
So the antithesis of what he claims to be.
And it wasn't, and that actually just hit a news article recently, and the reporter interviewed him, and his only answer back was that, well, she was older than 18. And so now again, I've been on a lot of operations. We're set up in a place where we never have to touch a single individual. I don't care if she's over 18 or younger than 18. We don't have to touch anybody. We're so strategically set up. When we go out in these operations, we know exactly how to get out of a situation, and definitely you don't have to be touching the breasts of a young lady.
Right.
But that's what happened. He got caught. It was on film. It just hit the news, I think, like a month or so ago. And his response is, well, she was older than 18. You know, again, this is the guy that supposedly rescued 5,000 kids, but isn't filing his 990s. So somehow he's magically doing it with, I don't know, play money somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Tragedy. There goes my hero. There goes my hero. He wasn't my hero. The reason I'm saying that is because a few months ago when I saw him, I was like, wow, where did this guy from?
Yeah. But I get it though. Then this is exactly what you're saying. The point is, guys, is that if you're just know that there's other sides to everybody's story. And so you have to look at the individual. And just as they're trying to tear the credibility of Tim away, maybe you should look at the credibility of the person that's trying to tear the credibility away.
Absolutely.
And who they are.
Consider the source, right?
Or what skeletons they have in their closet, right?
Those who character assassinate others to get gain. Like we said, we're on the defense, not me, but you, and not you, Kahea, but Janet and Tim, but you're here on their defense. They're not, what's it called? They're counterattacking. They're not the aggressors.
Oh no. Yeah, not at all.
Right?
We've all known about Paul, but no one's like come out and try to attack Paul or that kind of thing. We just kind of let him live his life or whatever it is, you know. But he's constantly tried to attack Tim over the years, and that's why you guys probably sense a little passion there behind that subject with Paul. But it's because I
Well,
know
you know
so much
him.
about this guy.
You know him
Um,
very well. You spent
he
many.
threatens and he's shut up a lot of people in Utah. There are several people in Utah, and hopefully, if they hear this, they speak out about him as well. There are a lot of people in Utah that he'll shut down. He'll threaten to lawsuit them. He'll threaten defamation and things like that. He's done the same thing to me. I'm not scared of him. But a lot of people get worried and nervous about him, and so they don't say anything. And he's done a lot of harm to people in Utah, young girls that have been hurt by him emotionally and physically.
Wow. And a lot of people don't realize that when you get a cease and desist, it doesn't mean you have to stop. That means if you don't stop talking, I'm going to sue you. That's all it really means, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and,
You're gonna sue.
and when somebody
Like,
threatens you over and over again, it doesn't seem
there
like it
was,
phases you anymore.
and that's the problem too. And again, I don't know if he's using this. I don't know if he used Tony Robbins' name when you saw him speak last.
I didn't see that, but I watched 2/3 of it. I haven't watched the last third of that, of his own video. But go ahead. I was thinking the same thing that you're gonna
Yeah,
say.
but like Tony Robb, he name drops a lot. Even in that fake magazine article that he had written up, he had name dropped all these different people. Some of those people have no idea who he is. But they're like, and I know that because one of them, like Mike Tomlin with the Steelers, is a friend of mine. But he name drops. One of the people he name drops a lot though, or was in the past. I don't know if he's doing it now at Galas, is Tony Robbins. And only because Tony Robbins was friends with him when he was friends with Tim, right? Not when Tony was friends with Tim. I mean, when Tony was friends with Paul or would meet with Paul because Paul was coming along with Tim, right? And Tim and Tony are close. And so he was utilizing Tony's name at galas and name dropping when he speaks, saying, hey, Tony's a big part of what we're doing and yada, 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 and using Tony's name as credibility. And Tony's legal team sent Paul 3 cease and desist letters saying to stop using their name. He wants no affiliation with Paul or Child Liberation Foundation for that matter.
That's what you brought up, Janet. Remember you were telling me something about Tony Robbins giving him a cease and desist letter.
Correct. Yeah,
Yep.
Tony Robbins' legal team. Yeah. Yep. Paul portrays himself and his relationship with Tim as if Tim was always reaching out to Paul. Paul, I need you to fund this. Paul, I need you to come to Cartagena. Paul, I need you on this op. Paul, I need a guy that looks like the rich client of a trafficker who's trying to sell children. As if Tim is always petitioning Paul, which isn't the case. I mean, a couple of times Tim said to Paul, yeah, you can come along. But Paul was never part of OUR. I don't think he's ever received money from OUR. I don't think he worked as a contractor, operated as a contractor for OUR. I think he went on his own dime. And Kahea, you can clear that up if I'm wrong on that.
Well, they stopped letting him go on ops back in 2017 or 16 when he had touched that girl. They didn't bring him on any ops. So then he started doing his own supposedly, ops with a bunch of friends, and then we go down to South America, whatever. I went with them a few times, and I was like, what the heck? It was nothing like the ops that you go on with OUR. It was more of just a bunch of guys that want to get away from their wives and party for the weekend.
And I hope that if anything, we don't like talking about this guy, right?
Yeah.
But if anything, I hope what it does is it stops him from going on any more podcasts, or it kind of sends a message to people that this isn't the guy that you think he is. I've got did you have anything else about Paul? I wanted to kind of go into some other things, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, you can go into other stuff. Yeah.
Is that okay, Janet?
For sure.
I've got 25 minutes left, and then my son is making us go see King Kong, not King Kong. What's the other one? Godzilla.
Godzilla?
Yeah. We're going to go see Godzilla. Do you feel these women were spiritually manipulated by anyone? Because that's one of the charges.
Yeah, no,
Or the allegations.
Allegations, sorry. That's one of the allegations that they were spiritually manipulated.
Just lawsuits. Yeah, no, I thought that was funny too, the whole thing with where they said that Tim was using Ballard's name, I guess, a person that's a high up in the church, using his name to supposedly coax these girls to do things. Again, it's another funny thing that was brought up, because I've never heard, and I was around, not just was, but I am around and have been around Tim for 7-something years. I'm one of his best friends. I've never heard him at any speaking engagement, even like name drop Ballard, or even like just when we're casually just hanging around. Ballard's a friend of his. I knew that, but it's not something that.
And he might say it and as excited once in a while to people,
Oh yeah, like I talked to Ballard, or that kind of thing.
I tell people about my mission where I knew 2 apostles on my mission. I bring that up a lot.
Yeah. Especially people in the church, they always talk about, hey, I bumped into this apostle, I bumped into this general authority, I was at the hotel and I saw this guy.
Right.
That's very, very normal. So in that sense, yeah, but never disclosing what their conversations about, unless it's like some part of one of his talks or something, but never in a name dropping style or a way to convince. But also I go back to, again, it's about the intention, right? So again, if the girls are right, what they're insinuating is that his intention was to have sex with them, but yet he had opportunities, according to all these places and times where they're both naked, supposedly. He had opportunities and he never did.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you said that, because we were going to talk about Celeste a little bit. That video that she went on was in September. 2 days before she went on that podcast, we're not going to talk about what the text said, but there's a couple texts that were sent me by someone. Should we disclose who the texts were sent to, Janet?
Who the texts were sent to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Or who sent me the text? Who was it that sent me the text?
So I have Celeste text conversations between Celeste and me, myself, and I shared the text with you.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
Okay.
So in the text, we can't really talk about the content, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because she doesn't come across in the text. She's talking about a podcast she wants to start for Tim. This is September, the middle of September, which is 2 months ago. So we're saying a couple weeks after this text and this podcast she goes on, she's being offered to sue Tim, right? Here's $5 million. I don't know what they were. Is she settling? I don't know. I don't know the deal.
I don't know.
But right 2 weeks before this, we got to help Tim get started again. We got to get him going. We got to get him a podcast. She's wanting to spearhead this. She sounds like somebody that's got a level head, entrepreneur-like business mindset, and let's do this urgency. We don't got time. Let's get Tim out there and let's get going again. And then 2 weeks later, she's a victim.
And when did she file, or when did she?
Was it October?
I think hers is October, because the other women filed in September.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, this is so strange. So like on October 1st, I got a text from her. She had met with my dad in Hawaii. She was in Hawaii representing Tim. Because there was a gala,
right.
There was an event.
This was October?
Yep, October. So I have a text message right from her, like picture with her and my dad.
Oh my goodness.
October, and going, hey, look, and she'd come to the gala and just acting all normal. Hey, yes, spent time with your dad and love him. And I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. And and like, but she was out in Hawaii, gladly went to Hawaii, to represent Tim at a gala in Hawaii, and my dad was there as well. And so, yeah, I think it's very interesting because again, if she was so frustrated and so upset, Tim wasn't around actually at that time. I think I was actually with Tim. Oh no, I was with Tim because I said, hey, look, Celeste made it to the gala. And so again, she was so frustrated with her job. Tim wasn't even around. Tim was not even in Utah. Tim was with me. And so why would she have gone to Hawaii if she was, wallowing in her
Right.
pain, this relationship that's fallen apart and her life had fallen apart and she's reflecting supposedly. But yet I got a picture of her smiling, saying how she loves my dad and met with him and she went to the gala and yada, yada, yada.
What?
Yeah.
Purely to represent Tim. That was her going there to represent Tim at the gala because Tim was supposed to go and couldn't make it.
And Janet, you said,
And
oh,
go ahead.
you go ahead.
Ask.
You go
You
ahead.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So to lean into what these women are saying, including Celeste, that they were groomed, manipulated, some comments on the previous podcast have referenced, this is grooming. It's this, manipulative process where the women aren't recognizing that they're being groomed. That is not Celeste. And that I would say also is not, for example, Bree, who's former military. The amount of time that these women had with Tim was very short. The amount of time that Celeste had with Tim was longer, but she was not groomed. This was her decision, as it was all of the women. I just want to emphasize and overemphasize that, as I did on the other podcast. They made the choice, and as Kahea has said as well, it was their choice to go. It was their choice to stay. It was their choice to go again, completely of their own volition. They're complaining in their statements in the lawsuit that they weren't contacted again. They were waiting for a call. Why would you not just be done with it? Why would you not just wash your hands of it if it was such an uncomfortable and an immoral experience? Why would you be waiting for a call? Why would there be complaints about the food on the operation? I was a vegetarian and I didn't have a vegetarian meal, but then they catered to that. So then I was, happier, and they went snorkeling, etc. For Celeste to going back to Celeste, and I'm talking about Celeste, I'm talking about the other women. It's just such a ridiculous narrative. I'm not saying again that they don't feel regretful or remorseful about their experience, but I think part of that regret and remorse is that they weren't the special operator or operative any longer. They had feelings for Tim. They didn't separate role from being in role to out of role and being in real life again. And so there was that letdown. They didn't get called again, referencing that. That's a thread through several of their statements, that they weren't contacted by another operator or Tim himself, or his EA. And Celeste, there are other reasons that we can't talk about that Celeste then flipped from being bothered or annoyed with the women and their story and how silly they were and how ridiculous they were to be suing, excuse me, or producing these statements in the lawsuits, how ridiculous that was, to joining them because something happened in the middle that caused Celeste then to join them. And it's not because the reason is not that she was violently sexually abused or attacked or whatever the words are that she used. Her statement was amended. Her lawsuit with her husband or ex-husband or estranged husband, Mike, has been amended. That's a questionable act right there. If you were sexually or violently assaulted, you would, in your first statement in litigation, in the lawsuit, you would say everything. You would lay it all out. This is your opportunity. But then to amend and add different information and negate your original story, because that's what happens when you amend a lawsuit. Now you don't reference the original lawsuit. Now you reference the second one. Now the new amended lawsuit, her new statement, leaves a lot of the original statement information out. And so context is not there. I don't know if this is making sense to the audience unless you've read both lawsuits, but Celeste's reasons for being part of the lawsuit are not as they appear to be.
What did you say Mike said? Mike is Celeste's husband. What did you say he said that he told somebody that you said as you looked at Celeste?
It's in Celeste's original, Celeste and Mike's original statements in the first lawsuit, where Mike adds a statement. So Mike Borre's, Celeste Borre's husband, and like I said, I don't know where they are in their process. I know that they were in the process of divorce and that they had both gone to see a divorce attorney, and I have that directly from Celeste. I have texts from Celeste referencing that as well and her reasons for wanting the divorce. So Mike added a statement in the lawsuit, as Celeste has a statement as well. And in his statement, he references a meeting that he had with me, the first and only meeting that I've had with Mike, or a time when we first met. And it was at an OUR event or activity where all of the OUR employees can get together and have a good time, eat, and get to visit with each other and their presentations, etc. It's a learning opportunity, but it's also a gathering experience and opportunity, and usually lasts a couple of days. So we were at this reunion, it was called, and I walked over to Celeste and was introduced to her husband, who looked like an OUR operative. And I said to him, as we were talking, he's a banker, and we were just chatting in that introductory phase of conversation. And I said, "You look like an OUR operator yourself." And he said, "Well, I'm a banker." And I said, "I know, because that had just been mentioned." And I said, "Gosh, I would have never guessed that." And he said in his statement that in that exchange between the two of us, I looked Celeste up and down, and I said to her, which isn't true, that I looked her over head to toe, and I said to her, "I have a feeling we're going to be working together a lot in the future. I'm not quoting verbatim, but that's the gist of it. And that was never said. I never said that. And I don't look people up and down, and Kahea can attest to that, because Kahea and I have been friends for a long time and worked together.
Yeah.
So is that what your question is, or what you're referencing?
Yeah. Almost kind of like, well, it's an example of how, and maybe Kahea can see that there's some things being concocted by these people. It's an example of that I know people have talked about in the past, when somebody lies or is trying to embellish the truth, the best way they can become believable is they use a real experience that they've had in their past. Yep. And right. Yep. So it's kind of mixing a truth.
Mix it.
Yeah. Mixing
because
truth.
That way you can bring the emotions forward of what you actually experienced, but then you just applying it to a different situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. When you see these 5 women up there on this, like during the news
press conference,
I actually never watched the press conference.
Oh, Oh, you should.
I just somewhat know about the cases, so I'm really coming here just from what I know, but I never even really looked into the case. I haven't really heard what they're trying to claim. And so it's kind of fresh eyes of just going, hey, this is just what I know about them without really knowing what their case is.
Which makes it
But
even stronger because go
yeah,
ahead.
oh yeah, because I'm not like read through their case and oh yeah, and these points and that points. Here's a funny one though. There's a picture of me in it. There's a picture of me,
Oh
John
yeah.
Reyes, Attorney General, and Tim. And the caption to that picture in one of these lawsuits, I don't know which girl it is or if it's the one that combined, I don't know what it is. But one of those lawsuits, there's a picture of me with Tim and Sean Reyes, Attorney General for Utah. And and the caption basically alludes to that Sean Reyes would introduce Tim to foreign dignitaries. I guess alluding that I'm a foreign dignitary.
Oh yeah.
So,
okay. Yeah, I
so
did hear
girls
about that.
and the attorney and the girls out there that are, I'm actually American. Just so you guys know, U.S. took over Hawaii, so we're not foreign.
Yes.
And
What?
that was a picture. That was just a fun picture between three friends standing there, and yeah, so funny.
Who did you tell me about that, Janet? Where did I hear this? I heard that like yesterday or the day before. No, you said that when I talked to you on the phone, Kahea. That's right.
Oh, yeah,
That's right. You told me before.
That's how comical lawsuits are, and also I've dealt with lawsuits before, especially with my business and different things that we deal with. And lawsuits are comical. What people need to understand is that you can say anything you want in a lawsuit. You will not have repercussion. The repercussion that you would have is whether or not the person wants to countersue you or not.
Right.
The court's not going to do anything.
They can countersue for defamation.
They can countersue for defamation, or they can countersue you, or that kind of thing. But the court won't do anything. And so, a lot of times, like every lawsuit I've seen, also the angle of an attorney, particularly the plaintiff ones, are very aggressive, and so they go in with the idea that hey, the judge hears two sides of a story and has to come up with a fair decision, right? And if you cloud a whole bunch of situations or confusion into this court, what then happens where like both sides are bringing up all these crazy things to show that they're right. What happens is the judge just has to like create a median to then create what's fair. So if the plaintiff attorney comes in like blazing with like the craziest far-fetched stories, the judge has got to go, well, maybe not all of this is true, but some of it's got to be true, right? And so, and of course, in the public, they just read a lawsuit and they just think it's true because you filed it and you had to tell the truth, and that's completely false. Most lawsuits I've seen are like 50% false, even like the good ones, because this is what attorneys do. They're good storytellers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then they mix the truths with the false. And I've seen it on cases where there was no reason to do it, but then they do it just to add more emphasis to their side, knowing that the judge might scale it back anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of their legal game.
Yeah. I was talking to an attorney friend of mine the other day just about that very thing. The part in the lawsuit that says factual, these are the factual things. I asked him, I go, is that exactly what it means, that these are all facts? He said, no. That means the plaintiff, right, is alleging that these things are factual.
From their point of view.
From their point of view. It does not mean that they are factual.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? This is good stuff. I've got to go now, but
I got to go see Godzilla.
Awesome.
But Kahea, is there anything we want to end on? Because I'm going to meet with Janet later. If you want to come on with us later, you can. I think I'm going to meet with her probably just for a half an hour, maybe to do some cleanup stuff. If you want to come on with us, you can.
I can just end it with this.
Okay.
From my side, I just ended with this. I completely agree with what Janet said earlier, that these girls were aggressive with Tim. The ones that I'm aware of, and there's like 3 of them out of the 5 or so, all like Tim. Secondly, a lot of people like Tim. First of all, he was like the hero in Utah. Thirdly, people begged to go on operations. Daily, I'm sure OER was getting emails. I know that every time I went to a gala, every time that I went to anywhere with Tim where he spoke, and they found out I was one of the operators because I was going with him, they would come up to me knowing that they're not going to go bug Tim. And hey, man, you know, I have a little bit of training. Can I go? Like, people beg to go on operations, and so these women, I'm not going to say they're rewarded.
They were not unlike anybody else, male or female, right?
They knew they were lucky to go on these operations. They wanted to go on these operations, and that's why they're complaining. Like Janet said, I didn't know that they'd written that, but that's very interesting that they would say, but he never called me afterwards, because that sounds like a woman that had a relationship with someone and now was disappointed that they no longer had a relationship with that person.
Yeah.
Like, you name a kidnapper that kidnaps a girl, the girl's rescued. Do you think the girls are back at home? Oh, why doesn't he call me anymore?
No. And when you see Celeste on the video, in the last video we did, she's giddy. She's giggly.
She's not depressed. I have a picture with her in October with my dad, and she's smiling in the picture and saying how she loves she loved meeting my cute dad or whatever.
Yeah. And like you said, someone in a captive situation like that, they're usually, and Janet, you know this too. Both of you guys know this probably more than I do, because you've seen people in that situation in real life. They are quiet, timid. If they're around the person that offended them, they're not laughing and giggling unless they are putting on an act.
Unless it's forced. Yeah.
Right. But there's no excitement. There's no real, you can feel when somebody's really excited and when they're not.
No, and even beyond that, Tim moves like 100 miles an hour. Like, if you want to go on an op with Tim, you better stay up. You better keep up. He's not going to go sit around and wait for you at the airport. He's not going to go and wait in the car and are you coming along? Okay, I'll just wait 2 hours. No, he's like, I'm going. Whoever wants to come along, come along.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We've all been left.
Yep.
Like,
we've all been left.
You have to make sure
I turned the corner, went to the
lobby.
bathroom. When we got off the plane, I came back out. Everybody's gone. I was like, oh shit. I was like,
okay. You know what? I forgot one more thing. This is important, and I think this is God telling me to ask this. Not, I think, I know. This thing coming out about Celeste is coming out about an article of clothing. Janet says that everyone packed the suitcases all the time, is in the hotels.
Well, can I speak to that super quick?
Sure.
And then, or Kahea, do you want to speak to that first?
I don't know what the question was. What's the question?
Oh,
there's an article. Okay, is it Celeste?
Yes.
Celeste is saying she has DNA, let's just say, on a piece of clothing of Tim's.
Her clothing. She has a piece
her
of clothing.
Of hers
sorry. That has Tim's DNA.
Was it common?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Go ahead. You said, was it common
for people to pack everyone's clothes? Sometimes if you're trying to get out of a hotel, you got to move, you got to relocate.
Yeah, we're like grabbing crap and just throwing it in.
Sometimes other people's stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've ended up with people's shorts and whatever. Cause when we're on exfil, we literally are like sometimes, and we call it exfil or whatever you want, extraction. I've had times where we're like running through the streets of Haiti and we had to leave a hotel because we thought we were going to get our cover blown, and we're just throwing everything in our bags, whatever. We'll grab everything and we'll sort it out later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I'm so glad Kahea said that, because that's my experience. That's the experience of others that have been on trips. The Uber comes early, or you have to leave.
No, I have a video of me in Haiti as we're in the car, and it's like a movie kind of scene where the driver guy is just going right. And then we got 2 other cars behind us, and it was extraction time. Like we had to get out of that hotel, and we did not have less than maybe 30 seconds to grab whatever we could and get out.
Wow.
I have that video,
And
and we're inside, and that car's going crazy through the streets trying to get us out over to the airport into the next flight so we can get off the island.
Yes, I remember that. And I wasn't there, but I was on the phone. I remember that they were being tailed, etc.
Yep.
And this trip with Celeste, or these trips with Celeste, where this summer I traveled several times with her. The clothing of Tim's, some of my clothing and shoes, some of Celeste's clothing were all put into one bag because Tim and one other had bags to check, and then we all had our carry-on bag, and I always just take a carry-on bag because, as we know, Kahea, the luggage gets lost, or
Yeah, I don't do
you may
luggage.
not
Yeah, you carry on.
have anything
Yeah.
when you arrive. So Tim had a checked bag, so did another. Like I was saying, all these clothes got thrown in there. Tim's luggage was stolen actually at the airport before. So before we had a chance to go get him some clothes with him, he was wearing the same clothes for 3 days. And, all of his clothes he was wearing, the only clothes he had in his backpack and the clothes that he had on for 3 days, because it was a back-to-back junket schedule, which is an interview schedule during the time that the Sound of Freedom, we were promoting the Sound of Freedom and traveling for that. So there just wasn't time to go anywhere to get clothes. All of these interviews are scheduled from early in the morning to late at night. There are visits at the hotel. They're going to radio stations and TV stations in country, screenings at night, VIP screenings. And then you leave, you get on the plane, you go to the next country. So we threw everything in. And even in the US this summer, we were doing the same thing. Throw everything into Tim's bag. And on the next trip, like, for example, I said, do you have my shoes? Because I didn't have my shoes for a couple weeks. So then on the next trip, we had trips in between, but he threw them in, and there they were. At the airport, when all of the clothes were thrown in, dirty clothes, clean clothes, 2 or 3 people's clothes, I unzipped the bag, and I saw that there were 3 people's clothes, mine, Celeste, and Tim's. And some of, I don't
Well,
want to say names.
I'm not surprised anyways. Why wouldn't she have clothes with DNA of his stuff anyway? Like that's his EA. While he's busy doing a whole bunch of stuff, I'd expect my EA to be packing my stuff, or
so even more so than all of you guys, it would be.
Yeah, like
it's not
she's
surprising to you guys. Yeah,
he's responsible for him. Like I expect my EA, if my EA's was on a trip like that, and I'm all over the place, it's like, yeah, go take care of my bags, or whatever, grab my clothes, whatever. Like she is the one picking up behind him, kind of thing. That's like of no surprise. What's weird is the fact that she supposedly has this article of clothing, and I'm going, okay, well, how convenient then, because she's obviously planned all this to then be going on these different trips, and then miraculously out in October she had some kind of change of heart or something happened emotionally, which obviously isn't the case, because I have a picture of her smiling that she sent me. But then that means, so since that wasn't the case from what I see, then she was planning this.
Yeah.
She was planning to be around as long as she could until she had to file.
Yeah. Why would she hold on to an article of clothing? I mean, I know
that's
from
what I mean.
talking
Like,
to,
it's just weird. Like that's just weird.
Yeah.
And when did that
I know
happen?
from talking,
Supposedly, like back during the summer?
Either the summer or September or early fall. And I know from talking to Celeste that well, I know from being around Celeste, she's a clean person, and so she didn't wash those clothes. I mean, you come home from one of those trips, Kahea and I, could say the exact same thing, and you just throw everything in the wash because you've been all over the country, or whatever country you've been in. You've been all over, traipsing about.
Yep.
Yep.
Bunch of
So
OxyClean
throw
in
it all
there.
in.
Tide. Yeah.
Well, it is interesting that she has that article of clothing. I'm thinking, did she recently come across it? Maybe in some bag she found that, like you said, she's the EA, he's packing his clothes. Oh, here's Tim's. Or no, it's not his clothing. It's her clothing.
It's her
Gotcha.
article.
Yeah.
Uh,
Whatever.
clothing.
Whatever.
But I
point
also
being is
want to
that
say too.
she's following up behind him, and when we're on these trips, we're all over the place. I'd be surprised if her clothes wasn't at some point mixed with his clothes and somehow his DNA's on her stuff, whatever. Like, my point being is that for the fact that she has something and it was months later means, and then you would not hold on to something that you thought had something DNA on there unless you were already thinking about doing something with
Planning, had a plan B or whatever,
it.
right?
Right.
No one, I've spent so many nights with Tim. I don't he hugged me and his cologne got on my shirt. I'm going to hold on to that for a rainy day.
Yeah.
There's only one reason you hold on to that.
Well, you think about the burner phones being kept as souvenirs. Who knows what else they were? Some of them maybe wanted to keep as souvenirs. You know.
I want to also say that
Yeah.
no one was paid over the summer. Tim wasn't getting paid. I wasn't getting paid for that travel. Matt Cooper wasn't getting paid. I mean, there were a few security gigs that he was doing, so that he was a little bit different. And Celeste wasn't getting paid. So what's the motivation to stay? What is the motivation to continue working when you're not getting paid? I mean, it's either the mission, that was my motivation, that was Tim's motivation. I believed it was Celeste's motivation. It was certainly Matt Cooper's motivation always, because Matt, myself, Tim, and Kahea have been in this work since the beginning, since the start of OUR. And then Celeste has only been in this work for about a year. So what would Celeste's motivation be to stay and to continue to do the work? If it wasn't money, then what was it? It was her feelings for Tim.
Yeah.
And here's a funny thing too. I'll just add this, and I know we got to cut this off, but I even have a text message that I sent to Celeste, because actually at one point I thought Celeste was like one of Tim's sisters. He has a few sisters, and so because of how Tim acts around Celeste, and so I literally had texted her saying, "Hey, can you send me your brother's phone number, Craig?" And she's like, "Who?" And I was like, "Your brother, Craig, duh." And then she sent it to me, and then it was later I was like, "Oh wait, she's not actually Tim's sister." I just thought they were sister and brother.
That's interesting. All right, yeah, let's wrap it up.
And he would say that. Sorry, he would reference her as that. You're like my sister. You're like my sister.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's the same way he references me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a great guy. I hope to have a
great guy.
I hope to have a lengthy conversation with him. I know, there was a couple words he and I had, but I'd like to have a lengthy conversation with him someday. All right. Thank you so much, Kahea. We didn't really have a big bio on you, but what would you say your overall shtick is in life? Just real quick.
So financially on the work side, which has allowed me the opportunity to go out and help out a lot, is I've bought a lot of real estate. So I'm a real estate investor as well as businesses. And so. Amen.
Life's been good to you.
Life has reacted because of how hard I've worked.
Because of your
He's a hard worker. Yeah.
Interaction with life. Thank you so much, Kahea. And so to sum it up, the couple's ruse, you would say, is a ruse. Right?
Yeah, it's one tactic, and Troy, you and I can talk about that more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to come back on, you can definitely speak to this. The couple's ruse is just one type of
it's just one type of
ruse.
many. Many.
Many.
People, anyways,